Hello, and thanks for joining this session. Today we're going to continue working on our multi-platform chatbot for Astrocasts. And there's one thing that I'd like to get fixed that we worked on previously that seems to be causing some issues right now. The problem occurs when we try to get the chat messages for a session that doesn't have any messages. So let's do, say, session 5. All right, so everything here looks great, except if we look at our next page token and let's decode this, we'll see there's an issue. And this issue is actually causing some problems on our ends. Oh, that's dirty. That's so dirty. Okay, anyway, so we're going to do the next page token, and what we're going to see is that we actually have no value. So I'm not exactly sure why I'm not seeing any errors here. I'm going to see if we can look in our devlog and see if it's giving us this error or not. So I'm going to reload. So it's doing a bunch of lookups. See, I don't see any error. So I think I have tracked this down to this bit of code. So inside our message continuation manager, we have a nice little bit of code here that generates our new continuation token using the encode function. And we're either using the, if there's a last message, we use its ID. Otherwise, we use the continuation token's ID. I think this might actually, I don't know what's going on here, but what happens is when we encode v1, we are getting something here for an ID that doesn't make sense. Essentially, the whatever it is isn't actually being encoded correctly. So I think this logic is wrong. So we have last message. So session chat message is last, so this should be null. So if we have null, we will use the last message ID, the ID from the last message. No, sorry, if it exists, we'll use the ID from the last message. Otherwise, we're going to get the ID from the continuation token. So I think this is the problem because we don't actually always have a continuation token that makes sense. So let me see here where we so find messages continuation token. Let's go to our session chat messages controller, and we're decoding the continuation token that's passed in. Otherwise, it defaults to null. So let's see what happens. If it's null, return new static. I think this is probably the problem. We're doing this, which means that we are getting essentially null for the ID. Let's see if that's correct. We actually have tests for these, so it's one of the few things that we've written tests for on this project so far. So let's see if this makes sense. Continuation token test decodes an empty string. So we're actually asserting that it is null here. So that is awesome. So our test seems to indicate that we were expecting this to possibly be null. So this means that the session chat message controller logic is not, the session chat manager, continuation manager has incorrect logic because right now it is assuming that it can actually get null for an ID, which is what it will end up with here. So I think what we should do is probably update our encode v1 to allow ID to be null. And what we can do here is say ID or 0. I think that should work. So let's run our tests, make sure our tests still run, because that's always important. Oh, there we go. All right, so our tests still run. We don't actually have, well, the test ran before. So we don't actually have tests now that prove anything works or doesn't. So what we need to do is add an additional test. So let's go back into continuation token test. It decodes, so it encodes V1. Let's do, it encodes V1. Let's do all null. So we'll do null for ID. Let's do, well, let's do null ID. All right, so what we should end up with, so that we can sort of try and guess this, is we should end up with the following. So let's go back to our base 64 decoder. Let's do base 64 encode. I want a better one that goes back and forth, I think. Decode. Is this the one I was on? Encode. Okay. So let's do 1, which is the indicator for which version of our continuation token we have. Let's do 0, which is what we're expecting the ID to be encoded as, and then the timestamp. So let's do a different timestamp. Let's do 43, 510. So if these are the values that we're giving, then we should be able to determine what this looks like. So let's copy this value from here back. This is now our expected, and so we should be able to encode ID with null and timestamp with this timestamp, and this is the value we should get. So let's double check and see if that's what happens. Okay, so now we know that it's passing our expectations. Now, let's go and undo our change. So let's change this back to the following. And actually what I'm going to do is remove this. So this is the error I was actually seeing. So we should see an error or a warning. Okay. All right, so what we end up here is that we're getting the wrong value. So we are getting, we expected that, we got this instead. If we decode this value, how do I decode now? 64 decode. This is really annoying that they're separate. Decode, yeah, so this is what we were seeing before, and it was causing issues. I'm actually getting production errors right now because what I end up with is, I'll copy and paste it here. Yeah, so we get argument passed in, continuation token must be of type integer. So it looks like this fix works. It should help us be able to handle receiving null ID, which is actually the intention of this particular package. So let's run the tests. Good. All right, fix continuation token. All right, and let's push this so we can have that actually up and fixed, which would make things a lot nicer for us. All right, so that's going to go off in the background here. Let me go ahead and mark my messages as being read. Okay, so now that we've fixed this case, we can actually move on and start looking at some real-time chat. If we go to our session here, actually we can see that it's basically going to have to rely on polling at this point, mostly because there are, let me double check here. Well, actually, I don't know if it's even going to work, because this is a previously existing, or no, because this is a live session that's in progress. The polling should be working, but I'm not sure what else will be. So what we need to do is go back to session 14, and this one actually works. So we can see that there was a little bit of chatter in the chat channels before the session started. I'm going to move this back to the start, and we can see the session starting. As I scroll through, we can see that additional information shows up. If we get far enough in, there's actually a considerable amount of information here. One thing that we weren't able to do in the previous session that I sort of did offline was handle the case of now going back in time. It's actually going to reset the chat so that it only shows the messages that happened up to that point in time. So that seems to work okay. I'm not really sure how the performance of this is going to work out. It seems, at least at this scale, to be fine. So I'm going to probably just leave it at that. Some of the things that I want to do, let's see here. So if you notice when this chat, or when the session actually started, the starting position didn't do anything meaningful. It actually showed the starting position of this session. So if I scooch back here, and the page loads, or when the page reloads, the Vimeo client is going to know that it needs to start at 5:06. The chat, as you can see, is starting based on 0. So we need to do the same sort of initial value here on the chat so that people can see up to where they are before they actually click play. So as soon as I click play, the chat fills in because the time update comes from Vimeo to say, hey, now you're at 5:09, or 50 minutes and 9 seconds. So I think that's probably a pretty nice place to start. So at least it looks like it's working. Otherwise, it can be a little jarring and confusing. So let's go look at session, and let's see how the player is created. Player, Vimeo, height. All right, so that's not where that was. Function ready. Okay, so if we have a user, and only if we have a user, we actually keep track of where the user is in the episode. So we can see that there's a report now. What that does is it reports progress for this particular video session with this data. And we have progress session is loaded. Wait, what is this? I need to double check this. Progress. So we pass in progress.seconds. Okay, so that's what we're passing in here. I don't know what is loaded. Okay. We also have to do something to treat that differently. So let's do, let's pass in progress.seconds elsewhere. So let's go to see where our chat dot record time update. All right, so this is where we're going to probably record. Let's actually take in seconds. All right, so that should be more or less the same, except we need to pass now .seconds. And then what we're going to do is call, if the user has progress already, we are going to manually call record time update to seconds, which should allow the page to come back up with exactly this value right away. All right, so let's see here. If I reload this page should automatically have a bunch of information on it. All right, cool. So it's loading immediately up to the amount of data we have. So I'm going to go back here, and so it's going to give to that point. If I reload this now, all right, yeah, so it's loading to the correct values. Let me try to load this as a non-logged in user. All right, so this is my little block to try and encourage people to actually log in, but we can see that since I don't actually have a progress recorded, because I'm not actually a user at this point, we can see that it only shows up to the fourth message or whatever it was, and then we can also reproduce that back here as well. So this is the only information it shows new users, and then as they would continue to play, assuming they could, things would show up correctly. All right, so let's check this one off. So that's good. So start chat based on starting position if known. The other thing that I'd like to do is handle the scroll top. If we look back here, this isn't super interesting because there's no real indicator. Well, not that it's not interesting. There's just no indicator that the chat is moving. So one thing that would be good to do is update to the bottom of the chat anytime we bring in new messages. Let me double check something real quick. Make sure I have my tags set correctly. Yep, they are. Cool. Okay, so we're already doing something like that on our original live code. Let's see here. Scroll top. All right, let's see here. So on submit, what we were doing before is setting the scroll top of the messages to the height after the information has been appended. So what I'm going to do is sort of do that same bit of information in here, except we might do it a little differently. So we have timeline, read messages. All right, so I think we had it in a handler. Let's see, where is that? Redraw, that's what we're looking for. Redraw now. So this is the part where we should check to see where we're at. So the naive implementation would be to add this at the bottom. And so in this case, messages is that .messages container. And let's see, I think if we just reload this, it will behave the way we would expect. Yeah, so it actually loaded with the bottommost message showing first. So there's no real indication that that's actually what's going to be happening, but it is. So if I move back in time, yeah, so we have the correct messages there. If I go all the way back, all right, cool. Now if we go forward again, awesome. So I think this is actually pretty nice. This is really close to the experience that I was hoping for, so I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and there is one other thing that I wanted to look at with this, and that's if I'm at a certain point in a chat, like right here, I don't know that it makes sense to scroll to the bottom, because it would be kind of annoying if you can't keep looking at what you were previously looking at. So let's see what happens here if I go back. Yeah, so it actually reset the chat. So I think what I want to do is do something with the scroll height at the top. Scroll height. Up at the top. And so essentially what I want to do is, if I'm not at the bottom already, then don't actually change the scroll. So I'm going to copy this code to the top because we're going to use these same values. I'm going to say scroll top and scroll height. So I just want to see if these values are actually what they actually are before we make the changes. So let's go ahead and reload this. All right, scroll top is 0. Scroll height is 384. All right, so scroll height, scroll top is always, so there it's actually not anymore. So scroll top is 1016. So we are setting scroll top to scroll height. Okay. So I think what we need to know is the actual height then. So let's do height. All right, height's undefined. So scroll top, scroll height, client height. See if that actually works. I'm thinking that might not actually be right. Okay, no, maybe it is. So 0, 384, scroll height is 384. So that's actually 408. Okay. All right, so what I'm thinking this means is if, so scroll top plus height plus client height is not equal to scroll height. I'm not going to do an if here. Const should reset scroll top. That actually doesn't look any prettier. Let's see what the code reformatting. Okay, yeah, super useful, thanks. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So should reset scroll top. Let's see if this works now. So should reset scroll top is false. It should be false and should continue to be false. until such time as I scroll. Let's see here. Now I'm going to scroll up. And now it should not do it anymore. Yep, it should reset scroll top is true. All right, cool. So that means we can rely on that. Let's do this and say this message container scroll top. And we'll do if should reset scroll top. Move this into there. Now I think some of the other chat interfaces, like Slack and whatnot, have ways to indicate that there are missing messages or whatever. We don't really have that ability at this point. Ooh, something here is wrong with this. Let's see. True, true, true. Ah, that's interesting. Let's go in. Looks like the initial calculation might need to be a little different. All right, so now it should be true again. Oh no, I have it backwards. Oh, my Boolean logic sometimes fails. So should reset scroll top. Yeah, I believe this is backwards. So if those values, so this should have been true. Let's see if this works now. Yep, okay, so that works. If I scroll forward, we should see new data. Let's go back a bit. And it keeps changing scroll top, which is what it should be doing, because I haven't changed it. Now, as soon as I scroll, it should not change it anymore. So now it says false, false. Maximum threads for service reached. What? Oh, that's interesting though. So now I wonder if it's going to be trues. Yeah, it is. So once we got back to a point where the amount of chat text available was there, then it looked as if you could restart scrolling again. Okay, so I'm pretty satisfied that this is actually working as advertised, at least for now. So I think I'm going to remove the logging stuff and let's get this committed. I was trying to do some other things that were like more performance-y related, but it seemed kind of not right. So what I'm doing instead currently is removing all of the children from the messages container every single time we redraw, and then appending in order all of the messages that needed to be drawn. I was running into some weird issues when I was trying to do some different things with this to try and make sure that nodes weren't recreated or whatever, but this seems to be the most straight ahead and it actually works, so I'm going to leave it like this for now. Whoa, there we go. Keep chat only if we were. Cool. All right, so we got that going. So now we need to focus our attention on our current session. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that's actually working. So let's look at session 20. All right, so here we actually have chat messages. I don't know where they are. So what I want to do is see if I can figure out which. So we're on session 20. Response. Let's see if we can get the session 87. So let's look at session 87. All right, so there should be a chat message. So I don't know why it's not displaying. It should be able to get at least that first one. Let's see what happens if we do this. So let's do next page token. Yeah, so then it has next false. So there should at least be this one chat. I have no idea why it's not working, especially given, oh, so next page token is undefined. So this did give it a message. Let's see here. That undefined bit kind of has me a little concerned. Let's do session next page token. Type of undefined. Okay. So if this is null or all right, so now we should at least not get undefined. So the second call was totally fine. We can see that it actually gave the correct next page token, but that first request should not have contained a next page token at all. So that's fixed now, which is good. I think that this powering up the Twitch client every time is going to be kind of annoying. All right, so let's take a look and figure out where this could be falling down. So what we're doing is polling. So that's the only way we can get messages live currently. What the polling does is it gets the response. It's adding stuff to the message, or it's adding the message to the store, and then it continues on polling however it needs to. And then it starts polling initially. So I think what we need to do is take a look. Oh, this could potentially be it. Let's see if there's any console messages. No. All right. All right, so we start polling. We should be getting to this point at least, because we should be getting that message. So let's sol.log and see if we get those or not. Yep, we do. All right. right, so we create the DOM and then we redraw debounced. Oh, it's okay. So let's look at redraw. So that current time, I think this is probably the problem, because current time, where's that set? Stop broadcast.clone. Broadcast should be scheduled broadcast. Yeah, so 213. All right, so all right, so let's go back into redraw now. Oh. Let's look at both of these values. Read until. So I think I ran into this one other time as well. So let's do this. Format. Exploring, for some reason I think it always shows the same time here. So you need to actually format the value. So 22, so oh. Ha! All right, so I see what the problem is. Both of the messages that I sent were actually before the session started. So, yeah. For some reason, I thought it would show them anyway, because it does on the live, or it does on the recorded sessions, but it doesn't here for some reason. It's still not doing it. Interesting. Did it actually bring that message in, though? Yeah, so I have a Twitch message and a Discord message, but this is 213, 2200, 22. Well, this was actually after, so why is it not working? So if the message timestamp is before read until, ooh. All right. This is actually all wrong, because the problem is that read until shouldn't actually happen, because read until is saying read until the session started. So what we need to do is take a look at where that's happening. So let's go to look for read messages. All right, so redraw now is doing read messages. until the current time, this is where we need to do some magic. So we're going to do this dot, or that dot, what is it, in progress. Actually, we'll just use this value. So if it's in progress, null, otherwise use current time. Didn't actually make a difference there. So the session is in progress, should be. In progress is false. Ew. Well, that's not right. Why would this one be in progress false? How do we find? Get next event start. There we go. Now we can actually get something here. So can I read property format of null? Okay. So this is an issue that is annoying, but locally, I don't actually get the calendar on a regular basis. So the calendar expires and or determines a different episode is actually current. So I needed to get the calendar in order for it for this particular session to register as in progress. So this is, I'm going to remove this. All right, in progress, true. And then we actually see the live chat messages that came in. Well, let's see how quickly. Here is another message shows up. I'm guessing it won't be super fast. Ooh, cannot read. All right, so at least it tried. This dot messages container. Remove child. Oof. Yeah, these should both be that. I'm actually not sure how that ever worked. Unless we never actually called those values. All right, let's try again. To reload, we should see 3 messages and a 4th. Enter. There we go. So it's not real time just yet, but the polling is happening frequently enough that at least for now, it looks like it could be working. I'm going to see if I can wake up Supernova. Actually, I'm going to do get status. Better handle. So before I actually wake up Supernova about this, I'm going to publish these changes so that we can actually maybe see some real-time stuff here. I'm going to remove that in progress. Well, how about we go check out episode 14 while we're waiting, just to make sure that we didn't break anything here. All right, so we were pretty far in, so we have all of this stuff. If I go back, looks like all of that is still still working. And it does show this episode as not being in progress, so none of that actually changed. Then that's super fast too. Sweet. Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm pretty satisfied that these two changes haven't actually impacted the work that we've done before, which makes me happy. So let's go back here. The deployment process is a little lengthier than I would probably like, but hopefully it'll be done pretty soon. In the meantime, what we can do is start looking at how we'll interface with Pusher. So if we go back to live, what we had done with Pusher, let's see, channel bind, and then we just appended the chat message for that data. So we're going to copy that into session. And let's see if we have channel bind. Oh, we don't. Because that's actually in base. Yeah, okay. This will be interesting. Let's see, Pusher, new Pusher. So this is on we have Beau.Astrocasts. Yeah. All right, so this could actually get pretty dirty. But I think I have to do it. So let's do var. So we'll look for any Astrocast chats. We'll just Astrocast chat. Dot query selector Astrocasts chat. We'll just call it chat. And then we can do something on it. So chat dot something data. So just for now, we'll do that. Let's go back to our chat. Where we had done this before was with the time update. So let's do record time update. So use redraw throttled. So we can do receive message data. And we actually want to redraw debounced instead. So now we need to make sure that we have access to this. So the way that we were doing this before, I believe, is to the store. And we were adding. So we we haven't had to do this yet for any of these pieces, but it looks like we need to now. So let's go ahead and do this dot store equals store, because we need to be able to use the store here. So this dot store data should work. So chat dot receive message. I think this will work. So anytime we have oh, let's actually do this. If chat, there we go. So we're only going to bind this particular message if it actually exists. So I'm going to go back to our polling. I had actually intentionally made the polling a little more aggressive temporarily. So let's reverse some of that. There we go. So this is every 5 seconds. Let's go back to every, let's see, maybe every 20 seconds. So we'll be able to tell, hopefully pretty quickly, whether we're getting actual messages in or not. So let's go ahead now and reload for the current session. All right, so in progress, true. And from Twitch. All right, so that didn't actually come through nearly as fast as I was hoping. Let's do again. 1001, 1002. So it doesn't look like it's actually getting the messages from Pusher. So let's see what we can do here. So now it should be pretty clear if we're actually receiving messages real time and not showing them. Enter. Actually didn't find chat. Interesting. So we didn't get that. We didn't get chat found. Astrocasts chat. Let's go to session. Make sure I spelled that right. I did, okay. Selector. Yeah, that's working. All right, so let's do hard refresh. Still not doing it. That's not a good thing. Now let's go for no, why is that? I'm putting that in the wrong spot. Oh no, I'm putting it in base. If not, disable third-party tools. That's not right. Pusher debug. I know you wonder. What would cause that to not be running? If not, disable third-party tools. Offline. All right. Apparently, I'm not using that on the admin live view, so I wasn't seeing that. Chat found. All right. So I'm going to send this message via Discord now. This .store is not a function. Okay. Where was that at? No. All right. Wow. Yep. So that's very cool. All right. So I think that's working. I think I'll call that a win. This is a lot of logging data, but the pusher stuff seems to be going real time, which is good. I think one issue might be that we're not, let's see if we go to store, get author info, add. I think we could potentially end up getting the same chat message multiple times. I'm going to add a to-do. Messages multiple times for whatever reason. So we'll also add that to here. So we fixed the scroll top thing. Let's, oh, that's interesting. It's not what I'd intended. There we go. All right, so handle message add multiple times. All right, let's get rid of some of the console logging. So we don't need in progress because we know that more or less works. Okay, let's go back to here. So we don't need here I am. We don't need chat. We don't need, and we don't need these messages. All right, so let's reload this. Make sure everything still works. So that popped up relatively quickly. All right, so that popped up. All right, cool. And no logging. Awesome. All right. Let me go ahead and send one more for Twitch. Sweet. All right, so now we have a fully functioning chat interface that lives on the site itself. So I'm pretty excited about that. The next steps are going to be giving logged in users the ability to post messages after the fact. So if we're watching not this current live session, but let's say we go back to session 14, and someone is watching at around 29 minutes, they should be able to post something at this point in time as well. And it should show up correctly at the time based on when it happened, or when it happened in the recording, so that people can still contribute to conversations and ask questions and things like that, even long after the session was actually recorded. All right, well, thank you all for joining. Looking forward to continuing this again tomorrow. Have a good night. Thanks.